everybody. Hello, good people on the YouTubes, if there are indeed people there. We'll find out if they show up. Today, Motion Design Hotline. We're on it. We're doing it. And we have to decide on some winners, Kyle. Whom shall be the winners? Please tell the people about the...
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will tell us a little bit, draw back this curtain here. We're today simulcasting onto this brand new platform called YouTube, which many of you have asked that we also exist over here on YouTube. And so here we are. And we are trying to make sure that we're also showing up on Behance, which I haven't seen yet, but, Evan is over there like furiously plugging and unplugging things, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm plugging and unplugging digital things.
I'll go ahead and talk a little bit about sort of the main theme for this show. A couple weeks ago, we did a show about the newer 3D model import feature in After Effects, and we showed off some of the builds that we had done on these. And we hopefully got a few of you to create some stuff as well using these features. And so we're going to go through some of those. We do have a few fabulous prizes for some folks that we have selected here. And
we did it. We're live in both places.
We did it. Live in both places. All right, there we go. So
from what I can tell, we are in both places.
I can see it here too. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
Great.
People out there, if you're seeing us in a place, let us know in the chat that you can see us, and that will really buoy our spirits.
Say words at us.
Yeah. Type them into the chat, and we'll only mildly moderate them. You can be as nasty as you want now.
Well, we'll see.
Where were we at with this thing? Right. We've got some entries, which is great. So we're gonna discuss them. Some of them will win fabulous prizes. We have in my hands right here. We've got seasons 1 of 2 of ReBoot, right? Which is a great show. Let me tell. Can I give you an excerpt from the back?
Please do.
Kyle? Okay.
Please do.
Oh boy, all 23 episodes from the first 2 seasons. So there's that. Welcome to Mainframe, home to Guardian Bob, formatted to mend and defend. Join the fast-paced action and adventure as Bob and his friends Dot, her brother Enzo, and his trusty dog Frisket fend off attacks from the super virus known as Megabyte and Hexadecimal in their relentless pursuit of chaos and the destruction of Mainframe. So that's the motivations of our main characters here. Known as the very first completely computer-animated half-hour TV series, ReBoot debuted in the United States on ABC's Saturday morning block in 1994 and has captured the hearts and imaginations of kids and gamers ever since.
I hope gamers is spelled with a Z.
You wish. Includes new audio commentaries. So new audio commentaries coming to throw out those old audio commentaries about Canadian cartoon ReBoot. Anyway, but don't worry, Kyle. You're probably wondering, there's no way they would have renewed that for several other seasons. Well, they did. We got seasons 3 and 4 on here as well. All 24 episodes of seasons 3 and 4, in which the characters, I guess, get much older.
Have you watched season 3 and 4? It sounds like maybe you're a little unsure.
Because let's see this. Well, what would this?
Wasn't that second box still sealed?
Well, yes, indeed, and it was not as popular in reruns for whatever reason. So, anyway, this is where they go to the internet. Jeez, this is probably why. Originally released as 2 feature-length films, The Rise of Daemon and My Two Bobs. Season 4 chronicles the full web takeover of super virus Daemon and raises the question of what to do with 2 Bobs. So that's the titles really do. So we discover the truth about the creation of Los Angeles.
What?
That's what it says. We've discovered the truth about the creation
I believe you.
of Los Angeles, the origin of Megabyte, and what Bob is really doing in Mainframe. Also new audio commentaries on this one. So
yeah,
you're going to learn so much about ReBoot. So that's what we've got as far as prizes go.
Well, let's it doesn't end there. We also have a fabulous motion design hotline t-shirt.
Okay. Yeah.
Which I should have worn, but that was a critical oversight here.
Oh, the hat you wear on your body. We'll send you one of those. So, should we get into our entries? Should we get down to those entries?
I feel like perhaps we should. We should probably say hi to Umacorn, who is here over in the Behance chat, lamenting that she has not participated in the contest.
Man, it's no time for lamentations. We must proceed. Okay, Kyle, we're going to look at my screen, I guess.
Okay, yes.
What order we want to do these in? First to
well,
last,
I can tell you which order.
Oh, okay.
But if you're doing it, then what good is that?
I know. What is the purpose of this?
How about this? There we go. Yeah, this was the first entry that we got from this guy's name is Brian. And I like his Instagram username, Lunch with a Lens. He does a photography blog, but the first time I sort of skimmed the name, I saw Lunch with Allens.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Which,
it was multiple Allens.
Yeah, I mean, you could have lunch with Alan Thicke, Alan Rickman, unfortunately. I mean, that would be a good get since he's not alive anymore.
You can have lunch with Alan Moore, and he'll tell you about Arthurian legends and I guess why Batman is so messed up. Let's see. I was going to say Alan DeGeneres, but that's not what her name is.
You know what? I think it qualifies.
Oh boy. Hey, Brian's in the chat. There we go. And Brian specifically does not take pictures of food, which is
no lunches.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, these are. I mean, you could eat a tree if you
could eat a tree. Something eats a tree. So
sure.
I'm not calling Brian a liar here, but
right. Oh, but Alan Alda. Okay, it's good. These are good Allens. These are quality Allens.
Al the Allens. See, I'm trying to do it.
Yep.
I got ahead of myself there.
See, you could have lunch with I want to say Alf, but
if we're letting Ellen in, then Alf also qualifies.
Sure. Okay.
This is going to be a good lunch.
Alfie cats, so probably not. So anyway, I like what I'm seeing here. This is a fun bit of business. We have a beautiful undulating background, kind of some shiny elements here. Good use of the stuff that we provided, right?
Yeah, it was a nice riff. I assume that he took the logo animation that you provided and kind of riffed on it, which I like. And you can kind of see from his text too, he was exploring a few things, doing some of the curved surfaces that you can create in that advanced renderer, which is very handy, as well as getting some nice perspective from either just a tighter camera lens or maybe some effects. I haven't seen this project file, so
yeah. Well, it says over here the curvature option on a PNG and tried some dolly zoom action. So congratulations. That's great. That's what we like to see. We like to see people trying this stuff. You got to flex the tools, which is good. And it was the first one that came in record time, I think. Came in pretty quick. So thanks for sending that in. We love to see it. Thanks for being with us. But yeah, let's see. Where else are we going? What do we want to do
next? We have one from Tiyagi Miyagi. Yeah, that one.
There we go. Okay, so this one, not using our models, but that's fine. Are these from Substance? Are these like extruded in there?
I'm not sure. Maybe. They're both round, so they do look like you have lathed them. But
I don't know if this is sending out the audio anywhere, but it's got like skateboard sounds.
There is some nice fun sound design on this one.
Here, I'll do it with my mouth.
I can.
Anyway,
confirmed that I'm not hearing the sound effects on the stream. But your mouth ones were good.
Exactly. But I like it. I like these abstract vases. I do find one of the things like in Substance or whatever, and you kind of see it on this one back here, like the UV unwrapping that goes on like between the body and the little nubs there. I always feel like that can always be done sort of better often, right? Just because the scale of it is different. Like it's way tighter on those than it is on the rest of the thing. And for it to like flow over the rest of it is some complex unwrapping procedure. So generally, if the things are coming out of Illustrator or they're coming out of Substance or whatever, there is an amount of like procedure required to get them to feel right. Are they bending? Are these things doing like a bending and bulging?
They're not. So I did comment on this one, and yeah, I think so. I'm looking just for you viewers. I'm looking at Evan's screen in kind of about quarter size here, so it's a little hard for me to read everything. But yeah, so this person just did the squash and stretch using scale, which I think worked very effectively here. It does kind of trick you into thinking that they're bending, but they're not. That purple one in particular, I think it's just sort of a nicely timed rotation there to get that. But
it works. It you know what? It feels a lot like ReBoot because that's how everybody in ReBoot moves around. So
very in the spirit, yeah.
Yeah, channeling the energy of ReBoot, which is what we want. All right, so we've got those ones. Now we move into sort of our finalists. I want to go to the potato.
Yes.
All right, this is from Dana, friend of the show. Dana brought to us.
Yes, this absolutely channeling our awful puns, and this is just
and
it's tremendous.
In my mind, I feel like these reflections. Oh yeah, because they are warpy. So this has got to actually be like a bent warped surface with reflective properties to cause this mirrored surface.
Yeah, I know that. I know that Dana is a regular user of Cinema 4D, and so probably found this sort of limiting. Because there's a lot of things that he would be used to using that he doesn't have access to here. And so I like that too, that like obviously we've got some folks who maybe were newer to 3D who are trying this stuff out, and then we got some folks who are using it and sort of understanding what the limitations of doing that within After Effects are. Which mission accomplished in both ways there.
Well, we're in this high gloss potato. I wonder if they just, Dan just generally has potato models laying around the house, or
maybe
what's going on with olives, or if this is a specifically modeled potato that they made specifically for this, because it does have those kind of features that kind of work in this sense. I feel like the oars seem to have been painted in our colors. So
I did. Those are branded oars. Those are official Motion Design Hotline oars.
We'll be giving those away at the Camp MoGraph this year.
Yes. Which they've just announced is going to be, it's just outside of Chicago. So Evan, this is me beginning the campaign of convincing you to come to it this year.
I might make an attempt. It's only 12-hour drive. I could ride my motorcycle there for 12
there you
hours,
go.
That'd be a totally good use of a day and wrecking my butt by doing that. But that would be great. I mean, it's also like a 2-hour flight, so that'd be actually the better thing to do. But yeah, like you really have to camp on that button if you want to register for it. So just a heads up.
Those tickets do go fast. Though I will say, from watching it last year, there are plenty of people who end up needing to change their plans as the event gets closer. So some become available.
Right.
Anyway, back to Dana's animation here. Again, it absolutely embraces the pun spirit of the show that we love so much. And when you look at this, there are a lot of cool technical things like we've pointed out. I haven't seen this project file, so we've kind of only theorized about this, but you can make actual reflections on materials. And so maybe that's what is happening here, where he made a plane to reflect the boat and oars and potato, and then has the adjustment layer in between to do the water and the displacement. Unsure. But I think this is a cool exploration of pushing some of those and seeing what you can get away with there.
Yeah, and I mean, there is something odd happening with the reflection, because you would expect when the ore dips, the two reflections should come and touch each other, right? Like the real ore should come and touch the...
Yeah, and I guess they don't quite. Yeah, okay, interesting.
Yeah, there's something going on. And to answer people's question, I've only been riding motorcycle for like part of a season, so I got my license last year. at the end of season. So that'd be quite a road trip for me coming up. Okay, so we got one more entry. We got one more excellent entry coming in here. This one, who's this one from?
This is from Nachi, who I've been sort of seeing her work. Recently, she's been leaning into 3D more, and so I think embraced this as a nice little challenge to kind of see what's capable with those in After Effects. So I think, if I recall correctly, I think she modeled these dice from scratch, as part of some other learning she was doing, and then adapted them here. I really liked the bend and the bulge here. They sell really well. She's doing this with the 2D bend and the 2D bulge in After Effects.
Yeah.
And
these feel right and good.
yeah. That I hadn't really even I guess thought to try the bend effect. I wouldn't have thought it would sell this well, but it looks great.
Yeah. And I've been toying on and off with a project that involves making 3D dice. I'm having a very hard time assigning the correct faces to the correct parts of the dice. That has really been grinding my gears. On a 6-sided die, it's not so bad, right? Like that's something that you can make the geo do what you want. When you get into like 20-sided dice and you're trying to do something that's procedural for n-sided dice, it's annoying to position 20 numbers. I'll say that much. You can tell where my laziness is at, that I think it's too much for me to manually position 20 numbers on things. But ideally, I'm trying to make sure that I can do all that in Redshift with the extrusions and stuff like that, so that I can spend more time experimenting with materials and physics and stuff, and less time just making the dice. Anyway, but yeah, Theo, it does look great when the light catches. Like, I love the use of all these little like pockets and bevels that tell us what's going on. This is 10 out of 10 a type of die that I would probably own. I love the not that I'm a huge connoisseur of dice, but it's the I love the kind of marbled look to those things.
Agreed.
I don't know. What else to say about these while we're here?
I mean, to collectively say about all of them, thanks to you folks that did something. Yeah. And I know quite a few people downloaded the project files that we put up. So hopefully some of them are making stuff too. Maybe just didn't make it in time, or, felt a little creative block, or they were intimidated to turn something in, and that's okay too. But there's no reason to be scared. Your entries are always welcome, even if they didn't make it by this very important deadline.
That's true. You can send stuff to us even if we aren't sending out prizes. We love to see things. We love to talk about them. If you're just looking for critique on stuff, send us the things. We'll talk about them on these shows, man. That's what we do.
Absolutely.
So Kyle, we must give the beautiful DVDs of ReBoot to people. People must learn about the adventures of Mainframe Bob and regular Bob.
Must they? Is that a requirement?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm out here trying to spread the good word. Now, I don't know if people can see from the back of this, but it's a kind of weird wolf character on here that I think is pretty insane. Actually, you know what? All of it is crazy. Pretty much everyone is named after a kind of pun for things that are in a computer. There's a character named Fong, but then there's also a character named Hexadecimal. I don't understand why that would be a character's name, because that's really just a way of categorizing.
Yeah, at least, like, wouldn't you sort of abbreviate it? Like, that person could go by Hexy or something. That at least sounds cute.
Well, they are not a cute character. They're a menacing character. So, of course, they wouldn't do that. I think they're really just latching. It feels to me like someone read a bunch of terms about a computer and without sort of knowing what any of them are, they really just kind of assign like, oh, this has hex in the title, that must be bad. And this person's named Megabyte. Biting is bad, and mega means big. Therefore,
bytes mega.
Yeah. So if they megabyte, therefore we should probably not like them. But also that scales very nicely. Their upgraded form is gigabyte and so on. So anyway,
the gigabytes probably barely even had been considered in 1994.
Oh, and L3RD. Oh man. Well, hey, don't feel too discouraged.
Right.
We'll be doing more of this stuff later. And by the way, everyone starts somewhere. We just want to see people giving a go.
100% agree. And you know what? Like, honestly, I'm still pretty inexperienced in 3D myself. I've done a lot of cheats over the years.
Right.
But if you ask me to, make some super photorealistic thing, it would take me some time to get it to a level where I was satisfied to post it. So, but everybody is starting from somewhere, and nobody's good at everything. So, again, we would, if you do put something together, we'd love to see it, even if it's a month from now.
Exactly. However, for now, Kyle, whomst will be receiving our beautiful DVD.
Well, I think that honor goes to Nachi because the die, I think it really helps kind of push the boundaries of what both of us thought, you'd be able to pull off in here. I think it looks really nice. And while I did love Dana's pun, there was definitely some consideration here. We decided that the die was the way to go. It's just to die for, right?
Exactly. So we're gonna send out some beautiful prizes. We're gonna contact these people and get information.
I do want to point out though, you know what? Since we only had a handful of folks participate, I thought it felt nice to go ahead and give all 4 of them a Motion Design Hotline T-shirt. So we'll be getting in touch with you folks and giving some shirts out. Yeah, so you can become a walking advertisement for our free internet show.
Yeah, I mean, people are going to see you at conferences. They're going to assume you have great taste, and that's really the point of putting logos on your shirts. It's great. Dana will, however, be receiving boxed mashed potatoes from us.
Yeah, or something. We'll see. Dana, you'll definitely also get something weird that has not been fully determined yet.
Exactly. I don't know if you can put produce in the mail, or if you should. Gently...
Well, I can send it. You couldn't because it would be international, and that probably does violate some laws. But I can send it to Dana.
One dangerous Prince Edward Island potato. So it's be getting. Well, Kyle, we took care of that in about 20 minutes, so we've still got the rest of the time to do a show of some form.
Well, I'm going to take a second here. I won't have anything to show, but I can kind of talk through this because it is a good little add-on here. Let's. Here, you can just do our faces for a minute here. So Umacorn is making some references here to a conversation that we had kind of offline. And there's a project that they've been working on in Illustrator, creating some 3D models and then bringing those into After Effects. And that is absolutely possible. And I don't remember if I said this during a past episode, but I just wanted to point out for folks that are trying that those models are going to be wrapped with the textures that you can see in Illustrator, but that's it. So, like, if this is what you can see in Illustrator, you're going to get, the top and these sides, but the back and the bottom are probably not going to look good. They're probably going to have some weirdness. Things are going to be maybe wrapped in odd ways because Illustrator obviously isn't a 3D texturing program. So, you are going to have some limitations there. If you just want to bring the thing in and maybe do some slight rotation, you'd probably sell it pretty well. But if it needs to do a 360 spin, you're going to need to do some hacks to make those work.
Yeah. Now I will say there are a lot of 3D tools. So Substance is one of them. But if you just fire open Blender apparently has really good unwrapping, like automatic unwrapping tools. In there. So it might be worth exploring that if you feel like, I want to paint something on all the sides of this. You take a 3D thing and then it rips it apart as if it is made of paper. And then you get that big diagram of all the parts of the paper model. And then you just, doodle flatly upon those. And then that comes back together to be a 3-dimensional thing when it is wrapped, as we say, around it. So that is the way to go. And you'll get better at it with time. That's the only thing I could say.
And there are some various 3D options, like some browser-based things, and a few of those are free as well, or they have free tiers. So there are a lot of good ways to get into it, even if you don't have a machine that's very powerful.
Yeah, because so what are some of them? I know there's one called. Let's go over to my screen real quick. So here's one called Spline.
Yep, Spline is super cool.
Now you can also do like interactive stuff in Spline. Spline is very interesting. Spline tends to output kind of, I want to say softy things because it has kind of like mushy softiness to it. What are some other good ones though that we can?
Well, there's Sketchfab, which is sort of a more like multi-purpose 3D online thing. I mean, I think plenty of folks create things on there for 3D printing and stuff as well, and maybe even that a little more than for graphics work. But
well, yeah. So Sketchfab is there's this big reciprocity of stuff. Maybe you're thinking of SketchUp.
Maybe
SketchUp, like ketchup. Is although I thought SketchUp used to be owned by Google, but maybe it's not anymore. But maybe it got sold off or something. But SketchUp is really cool for if you are like a CAD person, if you're making physical objects or designing a house and stuff like that, right? So like this is a really cool type of deal to be able to put things together. Like anyway, it's so interesting, and then the way you can export the stuff and do things with them. So like we want GLBs and GLB
Giltufs.
GTFLs. So, but those are just two formats. Like .obj import is in the pipeline. It's in the beta. You can enjoy that. But if you were sending your 3D things out to be 3D printed, you need STL. Like you need. You need things that have architecture within them to hold up the shape when it's printed. Or if you're putting it to a CNC router, you need to be able to convert that into paths. So there's a fabrication element to it. Anyway, that's why SketchUp pretty great for stuff like that. I don't know, man. What do you want to do for the rest of our time here, though?
Well, so we've got ballpark 30 minutes left. Honestly, we do have, a handful of you in the chat, and it's been a little while since we just riffed on stuff. So if there are any questions at all, I mean, we could kind of show some of this Illustrator 3D stuff if you want. I don't even know what this is that Evan has up, so we can explore that.
This is what I was doing this morning on the Pro Tips stream.
Nice.
Like there were some things that are kind of left over from this that I think would be super helpful for people to hear.
I mean, that looks cool. It looks very realistic and shiny and stuff.
Sure.
I'd be happy to have you dig into that unless anyone has a question that they'd like us to cover.
What was it? CC Cube. What's a CC Cube? Is that really an effect that we have, Kyle?
I don't believe so.
There is. What am I thinking of? I know that there are a lot of like CC Sphere and stuff like that. I don't think any of those effects interact with things bumping into them. Which is unfortunate because
because they're 2D effects sort of faking 3D, so they don't have actual 3D geometry.
I was gonna say it's gonna be so nice when we have like an advanced 3D particle blaster.
Yeah, you mean like Element 3D? That's what that is.
Yeah, well, I mean one that that'll interact with our advanced 3D.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Right. But yeah, so this pot, Kyle, probably wondering, Evan, why is it so shiny? Right?
Why is it so shiny?
What's going on with this? So this is a scan that was done by a French museum. This is about 750,000 polygons to make this pot, which is pretty extreme when you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's because they were really interested in like, you see like these little valleys and stuff here, like that's all geometry. So this thing is representing is fully geometric. Whereas we would likely store that information in like a displacement channel or a bump channel. But
this is a scan meant more for like posterity, right?
Yes.
Versus, someone who's scanning it specifically to do animation with it who would try to optimize it as much as possible.
Yes. And really, it really comes down to like they really wanted that 3D raised detail coming out of here. So if this was a bump map, for example, we don't talk about this kind of thing a lot, but if this was a bump map, when you observe the edge of the boundary, this would be totally smooth and you would see no raisedness from it because bump is just a fake thing.
Yeah.
Now, why does it look so glossy? Well, it looks super glossy because of the environment light that I've used in here. So I'll just switch to, no, wait, where is it? It is this one up at the top, up at the tippity top. So I'm going to set us to the default light. So this is like the default environment, which is pretty dark. And you can see that it even, the way its light is behaving on the surface looks so much more matted, right? Now, I believe that is because the HDRs that I'm using are actually really blowing it out with. So an HDR, for those of you who may not be particularly well versed in it, is that there is more information than what we are seeing and displaying. So the high dynamic range, the radiance information. Just imagine that here in After Effects currently, given the settings that I'm on, we would graph the numbers between 0 and 255, right? That's the range. But an HDR file can say like, hey, those are fun numbers. I go up to 10,000, right? We're going to display the 0 to 255, but I can store numbers way beyond that, which is why the sun or these super bright lights are coming in so hot, is because those are massive, right? Anyway, so that's why you get these like way brighter, way hotter spots on here. But hey, I can switch that out to the other one. So here is a different one, and see how much more diffuse that gets, right? So why is it like that? I guess is maybe something we should get into. So here is the more diffuse one. You can see that there's light everywhere, right? There's nice, these are nice bright windows, but everything is nice and bright. And then this one is much higher contrast between dark areas and light areas. So the result is that the less contrasty one isn't as sort of blown out. I think my dog just tried to get in the office. Did you want to come in here, Sherbert, or not? No? Okay, that's fine. Anyway. No, you just wanted to make sure I was in the office? Great.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's sort of the idea here. Oh, Kyle, we have a real question.
I do. And I was kind of trying to maybe set up an example for us to talk through this here.
Yeah, so general tips on balancing the render settings to get a good balance of quality and render time. One thing that I think is really like the draft 3D button is our best friend, right?
It is. That button has been there for a long time, and a lot of folks never used it, but you absolutely should start using it now in the advanced render because it's way more useful than it used to be.
And it's usually like real time scrubbing. So, I mean, we could talk a little bit about like what happens when the render quality slider goes up and down, right? Like what's going on? The best way to figure that out is when I crank it all the way to 0.
Right.
And you can see how grainy, how nasty and grainy specifically shadows get. Like shadows, reflections, refractions, things of that nature. And I'm just going to take it from 1 to 2. And from 1 to 2 is a huge improvement.
Yeah.
How about we go from 2 to 3, 3 to 4? I feel like I'm in an optometrist office, right? And if I really just put this up to like 20, it's almost all gone. Like, and I only went to 20 on a slider that goes up to 300.
Yeah.
So,
well, you're also working with a model that has like some really intense geometry to it. So, I mean, I can see how, I guess it makes sense where maybe you don't need to go as high because all that detail already exists.
Yeah. So when we're thinking about like, where does the quality live? It could live in the actual geometry itself, but nothing about this is scaling up and down the topography of our models. Right. And that means that information is always going to be true. It's always going to be locked into that number of vertices. So in terms of what fidelity is being cranked up and down, so the shadow resolution, right? But think about like, if we have textures on something, how big is the actual file that is that texture, right? Is it 1,000 by 1,000 pixels? Is it 2,000? Is it 8,000? Right. So anyway, those are big considerations. I don't feel like that was answering the question though. It was about the trade-off between render settings of a balance between quality and render time, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. What can you say to these good people about that?
Well, I mean, I am far from a 3D expert, so I am probably only going to speak in generalities here.
Yeah.
But um, when you are working on something, you should always try to be as fast and lean as you can, because there's no reason to spend your time looking at the perfect version of the thing that takes 5 minutes, to look at one frame.
Yeah.
But and that's very true of whether you're doing 2D After Effects work or 3D stuff. Of course, there are times where you need to see that precise, fine-tuned version to make sure everything looks good. But a lot of 3D workflows in particular are just kind of based around the fact that you're going to do some work, and then at the end you're going to step away for many hours and wait for the thing to cook. And that's just kind of how it is. And if you can afford that time at the end, then you might as well make it look as good as you can.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think, like, usually it's like, well, I'm gonna check in on a few frames, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna check in on this frame in its final form. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'll check in on this one. Okay, so I can reasonably assume that in between there's not gonna be a lot of weird stuff going on.
Ideally.
A lot of risk, right? Like, there's not a lot of RAM previewing the whole thing going on in 3D, which is why the After Effects environment is still really great, even if you do a lot of 3D stuff. I will say you really want to try to bake flexibility into a render, which is something we can't really do as much. So you would send it like an EXR or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would have crypto mats and all this stuff so you can fine tune stuff later, right? That's still the idea that we're going to capture a lot of information and then we'll refine that information later. But that means that we want to capture as much as possible. Anyway, it's a lot of, like, the trade-off is usually with grain, right? It's usually how much grain can I tolerate in this, or how much is anyone going to notice? If this is something that people are going to walk up to in a shopping mall and stare at, maybe it's got to be super good, or it's going to be a 4K display. Anyway, so many consids. If we had a cut and dry answer, Kyle, we could wrap it up.
I mean, I think the answer to that question is what most 3D artists spend a lot of their time, trying to balance. It's not an easy answer. Unfortunately.
And it's really like, okay, I'm going to make this object. I'm going to put an 8K texture on it. Wait, why am I doing that? The final output is only ever going to be HD. That's thousands of extra pixels that are going into calculations that I'm never going to be using in any meaningful way. So that's why you see, like, the video game systems use the smallest version, and even more, the camera is this far away from something in a video game, you're looking at a poopy texture, and then it gets closer and you get a better texture. It gets further away, then it gets better. What else did I want to say about this file while we were in it?
You tell me.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about CC environment, something that you reminded me of when we started talking about this stuff.
What a great cheat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we're using it for its intended function.
Exactly.
I want to say, like, finally.
Yeah.
Like, I usually purposely avoid the kind of orbiting stuff that would necessitate this, but let's just talk about CC environment. CC environment is going to, in general, so if we just observe this type of thing, I got a camera moving around, you can kind of see that it's moving as if we have wrapped something around the inside of a sphere in some way. The way in which it is being mapped, in this case, is spherical. And I'm pointing it at something that I've just called the environment layer. Now, this is a bit of a trick that I really enjoy. So I've got this solid here. Let's break it down. I've got a gradient here. Now, remember, imagine if this was being wrapped around a sphere, right? So let's not imagine too hard, because we can always come back in here, and let's turn off that camera. Let's make a new camera. 24 millimeters, sure. And let's just point this new camera. So if I look up at the top, You can see there. And in fact, you know what would be helpful there, Kyle, if I went ahead in here and I put a grid effect on stuff. Maybe this will help.
Yeah, you better do that.
I think you'd best. All right, so here we go. So we've got this grid, and you can really see what's going on.
Yeah, there we go.
Here inside the holodeck, right? If I look up at the top,
it's Make it yellow.
Yeah, that's true. Right? Okay, hold on. Let's go back into that environment layer. We're gonna make sure that this is a. We got to make sure that it's one for one how the holodeck kind of looks. So
there we go.
And
much
it's kind
better.
Of it's kind of an orangey tone as well. Don't come at me, people. So here we go. This is looking pretty good. Mr. Data is Sherlock Holmes is going to step out and solve some mysteries. But the idea is that this is seaming the thing together. And what's really important to remember with that is that if you have anything that's wacky towards the top when it comes together, that's going to look strange if you look at it. And wherever the seams come together, that's going to feel bad. So to that end, let's get rid of this grid. Let's leave it as the gradient. If all of the top came together and all of the bottom came together, we would really just have a light spot and a dark spot. The two sides are going to come together perfectly. Thumbs up for that. And it's going to be a good time. So on top of this, we want to put a little fractal noise. Let's get a little noisy with it. And this I've set to overlay, which is going to get into the little bits.
I do think we pointed this out recently, but one of my favorite things about fractal noise is that it has blending modes built right into the effect, which makes it so good for like layering things up like this.
Or even just layering noise on top of noise.
Exactly.
Like if you're trying to emulate what people would say like a painterly look, that can usually be done with like 3 or 4 forms of noise over top of each other with various transformations and deformations going on. I saw a great thing that was about this. It was something that Maxon was putting out because people were like, "Oh, I gotta get this painterly look." He's like, "Yeah, well, here it is. It's 16 forms of noise interacting over top of each other in the different channels." I was like, "Wow, that looks really good, and it scales really nicely as well." But we got our fractal noise. We put a little Gauss in the house blur on top of this. We put some curves on top of that to crunchitize it. The grid, don't worry about that. But this, well, now we're just going to make sure that we are indeed repeating our edge pixels like that. This isn't going to matter a whole lot because if we look up at the top, hey, that's pinching together in an insane way. And we got this big nasty old seam going down here. That's bad. So what we want to do is within this environment, how can we massage this to look better? Well, I have an offset stuck on an adjustment layer, and I've taken out the middle part using a mask, and that mask is feathered. So you can kind of see the difference. It's going like that. If I remove this, all I'm doing is shifting basically the seam to be in the middle so I can work on it. And then I'm saying, hey, by the way, I wasn't that interested in the middle, so don't worry about it. But I know these two edges are going to meet each other nicely. Let's go back in here. Hey, we fixed it.
Hey.
That feels good. And really, the top and the bottom, I mean, they look like balloon knots type of deal. So why don't I repeat the exact same thing that I just did vertically? You end up with this kind of pattern look to it. But it can still kind of look kind of blown out. So we want to maybe just avoid looking up and down. Or if you, again, I want to go back to the environment, that the gradient, right? A gradient is going to hold better at the top and bottom, right? So if you can blend these two ideas, the fractal and the gradient, or the fractal and the edge of the thing, that's going to get us where we want to be with this stuff. Or just make it a cool grid and you're in Star Trek, and that's totally fine. So yeah, that's the environment situation, which, you'll notice doesn't really mimic the lighting situation at all. It's really just to provide something interesting for us to look at as we tilt and pivot into different sort of scenarios, right?
And you can use it for, realistic looking backgrounds as well. I mean, you could even, if you took a 3D photo, for example, you could toss it into CC environment and, look around like that. You might have to hide a seam if you're going full 360, but
Yeah, and it's what's this? AE Cartographer on Gumroad has a
Mhm.
sweet little plugin called Mindstorm that just randomizes
Yeah,
fractal noise. Ah, yes.
I actually have that up on my screen here.
Oh, on
Has a
Kyle's screen.
nice little thumbnail. So those of us that have been using After Effects for a very long time remember a feature called Brainstorm that used to randomize the values of the properties on the layer that you had. So it was a great way to kind of um, roll the dice on all the effects that you lined up on something. And it looks like this does that specifically for fractal noise. So
Yeah,
if that is of interest to you, then give this a shot. Looks like fun.
yeah. It's a wild scene over there with the fractals noise.
This is
Um,
aecartographer.gumroad.com. They
nice.
have quite a few products. Yeah, this person has made some very clever stuff. I'm aware of some of their other things.
Yeah. Let's see. What else we can get to? Is this model made in Maya or Blender? It's made by taking thousands of photos at the museum. And then that's how they do it. I want to say it's Reality Capture was the software they mentioned
Mm,
stitching it together with. But archival uses, all you need is thousands of photos of the same object. And kind of unfettered access to get 360 degrees times 360 degrees around the object.
right.
Look, they even did the bottom of it, Kyle, so they know what they're doing. What else is good to talk about in here? The camera
Yeah.
moves were a lot of fun.
You have my screen up still, by the way.
Okay, we're gonna look at Evan's screen.
Yep.
So
There we go.
the camera moves were a lot of fun to kind of cook on this. But in particular, I want to talk about kind of the text
Hmm.
as it's showing up. So I'm kind of making sure that the text is animating as it resolves. So then we can really tell like, oh yeah, the text is definitely 3-dimensional. Except when I cheat at the end and hey, the text is 2-dimensional now. But we're gonna feel like it's 3-dimensional because we've been looking at 3-dimensional text this whole time. But you get this kind of nice like slide reveal as the thing is cruising
Hmm.
on by. Like that's just a little bit of making sure that this is kind of in the right place and we're moving from a this side to that side. You could wipe it on with a mask, you could wipe it on using like a linear wipe. Same thing at the beginning, this type of just this is just big and in the background, and then the pot comes up in front of it and it goes away before we start moving 3-dimensionally. So is it there, is it not, whatever, it's providing depth because it's in the space. So a useful thing to do. In terms of lining up this text, though, like getting this in the right place is all about this, let's say, camera orbit axis null that we're now able to know if we look at this in a quad view. Give me this in a 4-up. I tried to make sure that this thing was always on the surface of the object that we liked, right? Like I want to go here. So instead of really futzing around with getting the stuff in the angles, I'll just move this to what I want to look at. And it becomes really literal. Like if this was a big scene of stuff, we're literally just saying, okay, I'm going to look at this, I'm look at that,
Hmm.
look at that. Now it's different. This is different from using the point of interest that would be, oh, that's what I'm looking at, but moving the point of interest doesn't move the camera at all.
Yeah.
This means that if I'm moving and tilting that thing, we get a really pleasant arc out of where the camera is, kind of automatically because it's causing this orbit. So whoosh, whoosh. But yeah, and yeah, it's a good way to sort of cheat some of this stuff that would otherwise be difficult. And then I start to get into, all right, we're moving the camera towards and away from that, but I'm also going to bump the camera left, right, up, down in order to frame the pot exactly how I
Hmm.
want. So
Now, are you moving the pot as well, or just the camera there?
the pot, it only has like a slight rotation happening
Hmm.
to it. And one of the things, just because in product demos like this, we want like constant movement, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like we want it to feel like we're constantly moving throughout this deal. Oh yeah, there's the big dark patch of our environment from messing it up. But like this is really just a change on the Y rotation as it proceeds through. And you're probably wondering, like, well, what if it doesn't line up exactly where I want, right? Like this, I think a dragon is what that is.
Sure.
Could be anything.
Keep zooming. Enhance.
Yep, that's a dragon, sure. This nasty chameleon, and who doesn't have the right eyes. It has like people face. Anyway, people look at a certain time period. People didn't really know how to draw animals. You'll see a lot of like cat with person face and dog with person face.
Hey, were you alive then? Maybe that's how things looked.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe dog did look like person dog.
Yeah.
So we don't know. Furries used to be a much larger percentage of the population. So in this case, to get the Y rotation like specifically where I wanted, I would sometimes have to just come down here. And if we get into the graph editor, you can really see like I'm really just dropping a pin in there and making sure this is a nice smooth transition so that it feels like it rotated there naturally, but it did not. I goosed it so that would line up, right? And then this one as well. Like I was trying to make sure that this griffon would show up at this point. And again, that required a little bit of juicing to make sure that. So let's say instead I wanted the papillon to be showing up like this, then I would need to kind of account for like, all right, well at the end I'm going to need to jack that up, but I need it to be smooth in between. So we're really trying to take the difficult parts out of this. And if you want it to be slow, you want it to be flat. So remember, flat is slow and smooth is kind of making this line not feel like stairs, which is hard.
You know, that was very catchy. We could put that on a, yes, all of it. We'll slap that on a t-shirt.
Oh yeah. So we're going to replace the great phrase. What is it? Smooth is fast, or like slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And we're going to replace that with flat is flat is slow.
There's something about stair steps in there too.
Right. Yeah. If it's like stairs. Yeah. Shoot. Well, we'll have to listen.
We'll have to go back and watch our own episode too.
Yeah. That'll be. Oh man.
So from looking at this, I think this is a great example. I think a lot of people are probably looking at the After Effects capabilities and going, well, but it's not really like a real 3D program. And no, it's not. But from where I'm sitting right now, this looks good. Yeah. Because it's a good model and it's well textured. And I think that speaks a lot about, where that work comes in, like at which part of the pipeline. But if you've got a good model with a nice texture and you slap some environment lighting on it for the right things, it can look really nice. And I bet this was a lot easier doing it in here than it may have been other places.
Well, combining like the text and the text animators and all the things that make After Effects really sing, those were the parts that really paid off in here. So like, oh yeah, you can see the seam in the background of our environment seam. So fix that up. So
that's intentional.
Yeah, if who was it? There was a friend of the show that worked for the big auction house in the UK, and they had to produce like, for every auction a little teaser kind of thing. Like this is for them. Right?
Yeah,
This is very much for them.
Honestly, you could probably use this almost as a template. You'd have to resize the thing, but I bet you could probably streamline this project to some degree and make it work for a lot of things.
Oh, yes, that was Kent. Kent was the one that was knocking it out. The one downside is that each model would have different features that we want to look at.
Of course.
Right? Now, what we could do, if you really want to go juice it, is to put little nulls in the 3D model itself, extract this data, then feed it in. We're going from this thing to this thing to this thing, right? Like it could be a marker driven experience doing that kind of thing. Anyway, there's a lot of fun business. And like, so the other thing that I was showing today on the pro tips was a room tour. So basically taking the same ideas here. Here's a niche for swooning. But now we're limited because we're literally swimming inside the model, right? Which is a little bit dicier, and we really got to play it a little bit like a video game.
Yeah.
Of like walking. We're going to walk. Okay, we're going to walk around, and I'm going to try to move back. And one of the challenges is that things don't necessarily line up the way we would hope that they would.
Right.
So, for example, I'm trying to move back from this, and oh, well, that doesn't line up with that, and that doesn't line up with that. So trying to sort of orient yourself with these tools, but our kind of camera, like, so dolly towards cursor tool, dolly towards point of interest, like it thinks that my point of interest is over there. I don't know if you can see. It's over on the brick. And like, that's not my point of interest. Well, it doesn't matter because you're inside the model and you're touching it, right? So you want to always make sure that you would switch us up, not to the dolly to cursor tool, right? Is that unique from dolly towards cursor versus dolly to cursor? Yes, it is. So you want to be on the dolly to cursor, which will send you way more accurately in the direction that you're trying to go. Oh, and hello, Leonardo. Hello, Tubers.
Ching, 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 ching. We see the numbers shoot up.
Oh, Kyle, these 80 people who are now cursed to observe the stream with us. But anyway, that's the kind of tip for navigating the 3D space. And it's the same for we're going to pan. Well, we can pan under the cursor or we can pan to the camera. So if we pan under the cursor, that's working out well. And we can orbit around scene, orbit around, we have all these different ways of interacting, which we don't usually touch, right? Like, we almost never touch these things. And that's right, Wade, you've lost your mod badge. You have no... you have no power here. Anyway, so this is... feels like something Gandalf would yell at somebody. So... it's really useful to be able to do this. Now, check this out, Kyle, or point this out. I'm tapping the C key to roll through these.
Yep.
The C key doesn't default you to the first one. It's whatever you have dialed in here. So if you dial these bad boys into the way you want, or bad ladies, or bad whoever's,
That's a great distinction, though.
Yeah, that it's like you want to set up your tools based on the way in which you'll interact with this. Now, this is a scan as well, Kyle. This is you're out on a tourist trip and you go click, 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 right? I'll admit something to people out there. I don't like museums. I know this is scandalous. Evan,
do you hate learning things?
I don't like slowly walking through a ponderous experience, I'll say. Like, if the museum is totally empty and you're not going to get bottlenecked places, that's great. That's fine. I can look at the things at my pace. I'm out of there pretty quick. I can stop on the things that I want to look at. However, take me to a castle. I love it. I love wandering around the castle and be like, "Ooh, what would it be like to live here?" Like I'm in the 1600s. Ooh, like that feels more like something interesting because you're also stepping somewhere that ancient peoples have walked, or we'll say not. Maybe I shouldn't call people from the 1600s ancient.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah, in the cosmic scheme of things, they certainly are.
Oliver is posing a question that might just crumble your entire worldview. What if the castle is a museum?
Well, that's kind of hit or miss because sometimes
is that a historical chair?
Yeah, so this is an ancient folding chair that I believe would have been sat upon by his royal saltness or whatever here. You can see these ancient cracks in the chair. So some of those are really well done, but like Kyle, a museum is a designed space, and therefore it must have intentionality and all of these things. And I can't help myself from critiquing the poopily done guided experiences at museums.
Well, maybe you should put your energy into helping those experiences be better.
Well, then they'd have to put their energy into giving me money, which...
Well, yes.
I think I would design a great museum. It would, it would
You heard it
also
here first, folks.
I think I'm qualified to design a great museum. There would be weird reenactors hanging out and they jump out at you.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm describing a haunted house. So, anyway, the thing that I wanted to teach about this is so we have to navigate around it in this different way. So, let's say that we want to go and look at the ancient chair, right? We're going to look at the seat of power here.
Ye olde chair.
Exactly. So, we're going to go from the window to the chair. And then we really have to get into this graph editor. We've got to get into this graph editor. And in a speedy graph, we want to pull our handles kind of like this. So we're whoosh coming over to that slow in, slow out, whoosh, whoosh type of deal. Like that's the feeling that feels good, as opposed to, let's just go ahead and grab these. And I'm gonna only ramp on the one side, so it's whoosh, whoosh. Like it's not quite as good to only peak it on one side. And similarly, if these are eased, honk, that doesn't feel great, right? That's
clunky,
clunk. However, things get a little bit dicier when we're thinking about, well, all right, let's say we wanted to flow from one to the other. Well, this is when, and we've talked about this on the program a few times, we want to continuously lock the in and out on some of these things so that you can smooth this out so it slows but does not pause. Like, ooh, what's going on in the window? Oh, I changed my mind. I'm going to look at the chair. Like it's such a tease to look at the window. I changed my mind. It's too terrifying. I can't look at the niche. I have to look at the chair type of deal. So anyway, that's the type of idea that if you want to smooth it out, smooth is flat, slow is flat, slow is flat, stopped is stairs. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, that's close enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So does this particular model, which honestly, I would never have thought of trying to do something like this in After Effects. That feels like a much more 3D sort of thing than I would really even attempt in here. And I would have thought it would be very slow, to be honest.
So we're on Draft 3D right now.
Right.
I'm going to take us off Draft 3D.
And to be fair, we are also streaming, but it's still very responsive. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, here's where things get a little wackadoo, right? I'm going to put us back on the Draft 3D. Lighting. Let's talk lighting for a bit.
Yeah.
I know we're going a little bit over time, but
that's okay. We're on our own time here.
No one can turn our stream off now. So all of the lighting situation here is baked, meaning that there aren't rays casting around anywhere. None of that's going on. But I can still, let's put a new light in the scene. Ooh, this is going to be fun.
Please do.
I'm going to put a spotlight in the scene. Now, the shadow casting and stuff, whatever, but it's not going to be.
And the thing he's whatevering over is that currently in this advanced 3D renderer, which is what we're using to import actual 3D models, only environment lights can cast shadows. The other lighting types cannot currently.
But we can experience the absence of light upon them.
Yes. Yep.
Forsooth, yon shadowed chair. So check this out. I'm going to take this spotlight. I'm going to hold down Shift. I'm going to parent it to the camera. The spotlight is now stuck on the camera.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And the other thing that's a little bit fun about this is
you're creating a horror game here now.
I am, Yep. So we can now swing this back and forth using the point of interest, or you could zero that out and it's going to be locked to, don't do that. It's going to be locked to the camera lens. So it's always barreling middle center on this. And you get this very creepy haunted house vibe moving through, right? Now, let's say, for example, we're much more of a science fiction program, right? Yeah, we're going night vision on this thing.
Yep. Looking for some ancient ghosts with an E at the end.
No, this is when I want to say Richard brought like SEAL Team 6 in to get Robin Hood or something.
Yeah, that's right.
It's very anachronistic Shrek style. But these are the types of options when you kick it into blue mode, right? Keeping in mind, we haven't even considered like let's just say we go white. The lighting in here is pretty yellow. It's pretty warm lighting in here.
Yep.
And then there's things like the cone angle, right? You narrow that down to a pinprick type of thing, or you, where's the fall off? Does this not have, maybe I didn't.
Yeah. You may not. Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to put it on smooth. So we can increase that fall off radius, and you can start to see like, we could have this area back here totally in shadow, and then a witch jumps out.
Yeah, so that's kind of a cool example, because while you can't actually do shadows, you can, you could take it in the right circumstances. You could take advantage of that fall off as an interesting, kind of, almost shadow-esque thing, at least.
Now, another thing that's kind of fun is if you're thinking about like, well, what if I want to make like a haunted house? What if I want to make a haunted house? I'm going to just go ahead and detach this from the camera, and then I'm going to take my camera and we're going to go into the darkness.
Whoa!
Right?
No!
So
no!
No! So, but we could use this as a kind of transition point between totally unconnected rooms, right? This pushes into the darkness and then it comes out of the darkness type of deal. Or if you went and photo scanned, say, a bunch of rooms in a castle, you could then use darkness in a way to get you in and out of those spots. Now, what else can you do with this sort of thing? Make new solid, make it a comp size. It's going to be a big old dark solid. Make that 3-dimensional. Now, remember, these 3D things will indeed interact. Oh no, Kyle, the darkness is encroaching upon you. That's right. So you can see this like coming down the hallway and blacken stuff out. Or if you just conveniently want to you want to censor parts of the model, we can kind of do that with this. It's like censored type of deal. So you can easily block things out using this type of object, which I believe will this hold masks? Yes, it'll take a mask. So you can say like, the scan didn't work particularly good on this window. I'm just going to take that window out. Or if there was like a tourist poking their head in here, we would probably try to cover them up so we don't have to.
Maybe. I feel like you would. Yeah, I don't know. At a certain point, you'd probably just be haunted by questioning why you're doing all of this in After Effects.
Right.
But
because you would probably want to trim the model in in Blender, right? I will be honest with you, big scans like this are very hard to sometimes do that to very well.
Yeah.
Because you start deleting a bunch of points out of them, and then suddenly the texture isn't fitting as good because you just removed a bunch of things from, as we talked about, the UVW mapping of the whole ding dang thing. So stuff can get askew at times. Things can get a little twisted. But if you're able to cull the model beforehand to take out the things that you don't want, because I think this model might actually even go into other rooms. I don't know. Let's see how far we can venture. Going on our little journey out here. Oh.
You heard it here first, folks. We're clearly making an entire like first person castle adventure game here in After Effects.
Kyle, we found the ancient. This is the.
That could be a chessboard or something.
The bin of garbage here is filled with. But you can really see like there was a hard stop to the model, right? And of course, if you were capturing this on a tour, you'd be walking around click 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 click. I wonder how well they did on this podium. We'll wrap it up here. I can't.
But see, okay, that's a great example where you could say zoom into that, and then you could have the podium surface, raise up, and the text could animate on. Be a great opportunity for a very museum-like experience if you were not the person who hated such things.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, and someone's pointing out the Guild of OSHA has been here and have placed many of their. We will know them by their signs of the fire alarm. But you can really see how in some of these scans things get lumpy. Where
they're not meant to be looked at super close.
Look, this has over 1 million triangles, and most of them are taken up with rocks, so we've allocated them nicely. Kyle, I think that brings us into the end of things we can talk about on this program.
It probably should. I mean, I'm rather stunned at the amount of time that we spent on that museum, but every second was worth it, in my opinion.
Look, it's a lot of fun. I hope this inspires people to go out and play with this stuff. If you happen to spill over from Adobe Live, hey, this is After Effects. It's a dope piece of software. Thanks for hanging out for the whole day. We are coming back at you. If you like the sound of these voices, see you here next week.
Or even just one of them.
Sure. I mean, if you like only one of them, we'll you can half pay attention next time. We're talking about data.
Not the Next Generation Star Trek character, to be clear.
Yeah, but we are going to be talking about multiple techniques. So
yeah, you never know.
Yeah, insiders know what that's all about. So we're going to be talking about displaying data next week, which means graphs. I'm talking charts. I'm talking bars. I'm talking lines. We're going to be looking at some charts you've probably never seen before.
Maybe some charts we made up.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at infographic type things. We're going to be looking at ways that we can streamline stuff like that so you can just input new data that you want. So if Brent Spiner isn't doing it for you, you could swap him out with another actor. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the program, but you are able to quickly load in new data, because if you are a content creating entity like a news org, Kyle, who else uses graphs? I don't even know.
Well, I mean, pretty much everybody uses graphs because they're a good way to, make numbers more interesting. And when you animate those things, it makes them even more interesting because everyone loves, no one wants to read words talking about things, but if you can see a few little lines moving up, like that right there just makes it instantly cooler, right?
Yeah, and really like things that are happening over time, like animating from this data set to this data set to this data set. It's going to be fun. You're going to love it. If you like any of the stuff that we've talked about here, you're going to love that. Guys, I love that part in The Matrix, when the guy bursts through the door. He's like, guys, Evan and Kyle are talking about math.
Honestly, we should probably riff that into one of our show promos sooner rather than later.
Evan and Kyle are talking about graphs. So that's what we're doing next week. Same bat time, same motion channel. I don't know. Anything else we got to tell people about?
Hey, Evan, if people were, for example, interested in checking out project files from past episodes,
sure.
Watching 30 plus hours of us talking at each other, probably closer to 60, actually, if you include all the back episodes, or if they were, interested in perhaps acquiring some very cool hats or t-shirts for themselves. Like some of the folks who participated in our little contest, will be getting some fabulous Motion Design Hotline t-shirts.
Yeah.
If you are interested in any of those things, where should you go?
It's going to be motiondesignhotline.com, a real website. That's motion, MOTION.
Why are you trying to spell it? It's right up there. Yeah. On the corner of the screen and here too. MotionDesignHotline.com. You can, of course, follow us on the social medias, and we have links to it as well if you don't like to type things.
Exactly. So at EC Abrams, at Kylosaurus Rex, find us all over the place. We're there. We're everywhere you want to be. We have a YouTube channel now, which is Motion Design Hotline. So we're going to be hanging over there. It's nice when 90 people show up at the end of the show, though. That's a fun energy.
Behance does have a very nice benefit there. But in general, folks, we're here to talk about After Effects and motion graphics, motion design, animation. If you have any questions about any of those things, send them to us. There's a form on our real website for real people where you can send us extremely detailed questions. You can hit us up on the socials and ask us simple questions, and then we'll probably prod you for more information. But the whole purpose of the show is to help you learn things about After Effects and related software. So let us know what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, and maybe if you've never done any motion design stuff before, maybe you're more of a fine artist, maybe you're drawing characters you want to bring to life, maybe you're making logos you wish they would pop onto the screen, whatever. It's whatever. Bring us any trubs you have or any things you're thinking about motion wise, and we'll
unless they're museum related.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, Kyle, I've made some pieces that are in a museum, so just gonna say that.
So you're a hypocrite, is what you're saying.
I'm qualified to make the museum. I'm qualified to say things about the museum.
Okay.
It was a whole bunch of boats. All right. Anyway, bye. Bye for now, everybody. Stay creative, be kind to each other, and we will see you around the internet. Boats.
Thanks,
boats.
everybody.